And I think we shouldn't downplay plastics and endocrine disruptors. I think we should absolutely focus on that. Shout out to Alex Jones, who has that famous clip where he said they're turning the frogs gay. RFK Jr. actually has a similar clip where he mentions that when you put atrazine in the water with frogs, the frogs begin to change.
So the thing with atrazine, though, from what I understood about it, is it actually causes physiological changes, like higher rates of micropenis, and all types of stuff like that. Are we seeing that in the human population?
Well, I'm just saying, I think we should not ignore that perhaps in California, you have these people who I think it's very likely to be social, very likely. But I do think there's a strong possibility that over the past couple of decades, you've had women ingesting all of their food wrapped in plastic. We all have been, but women are eating everything. And this is relatively new in the past couple of generations. Go to an antique shop and everything. It's crazy. I went to an antique store and they had like a orange knee-high or something, metal can.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's nuts. Thick metal can to drink a soda. And now you have women who are ingesting all this plastic while they're pregnant. The plastic goes into the womb and it negatively impacts the child. I'm wondering if we could be looking at something on an asbestos, a DDT level scale, where it's praised and championed and used everywhere and everything, and then cause massive negative. There's a massive negative outcome. And now we've seen all these stories in the news about how plastics leach phthalates, PCBs, etc., and they're endocrine disruptors. Do we just ignore that we have these stories saying this thing is happening, and then we just don't acknowledge? I mean, like, we need to get off that stuff.
There's absolutely a connection between health across the board and development across the board and what we're eating. I mean, the rate of people with autoimmune diseases, I have 2 autoimmune diseases, 3 technically, and this is unheard of historically. And you're seeing rates of lupus, which was historically an extremely rare autoimmune disease, to the point where it was a joke on like House. It lupus. Yeah. You got lupus.
It's never lupus.
You keep your drugs in a lupus textbook.
But now you are seeing legitimately lupus pop up in many places.
I mean, Selena Gomez has it, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does.
Yes, she does, and
that's crazy. She's young.
Mm-hmm. And since they're bringing House back, they should actually incorporate that into the storyline. Well, there's an article in Giant Freaking Robot about how they want to that Hulu is going to be bringing it back for a limited run. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if you can tell those jokes now.
It's going to be a whole other kind of show.
I invite everyone to go rewatch it with modern sensibilities.
I just want to see Greg House talking to someone who identifies with a different gender.
Well, watch the episode where he has the 16-year-old hermaphroditic.
I have seen that one.
Yes. That is an incredible episode.
But what were we talking about?
Endocrine disruptors. I mean,
yes,
I think it's true. I think it's a lot of stuff. Like, I always point out to all my friends, like, you should consider getting off birth control, right? Because birth control is designed to disrupt women's hormones. So that's also true of plastic. That's true of a lot of things that we celebrate, we get excited about, but we ultimately find out later, maybe we shouldn't have as much of this. We are a society that when we have an innovation, we tend to be like, it's great, use it everywhere. And then later, decades later, we're like, oh, perhaps not. But there are some things we're not allowed to question. So again, for me, the big one that I always say to women is birth control. You should question birth control. I know for some people it's a good thing and it can be helpful, but generally long-term birth control use is, there's a study that's out right now, it just got published by Cambridge University Press. Women who start birth control under the age of 20, so as teenagers, are 130% more likely to develop depression than women who do not. And then all women who start birth control have higher rates of depression than women who do not. What do we hear about people all the time? I'm lonely, I'm depressed, I'm having trouble connecting with people. Well, maybe we should question what we're putting into our bodies. And I'm happy for that to be food, I'm happy for that to be environmental. But again, I think we have to talk about the biggest change to women's life, which is that 65% of women in America are on some form of birth control, typically oral contraceptive.
And you couple that with social media and how depressing, how depressed people are becoming because of social media. And
it's a perfect storm. It might not just be a singular aspect. It might be a bunch of factors coming into play at once. I mean, for sure what you eat, for sure what you drink, for sure what you see on TV, for sure what you absorb through your phone, what you're shown in, your interactions on the street.
It's all these perfect storm.
Yeah, they have a long-term effect on you. Each one is happening now in conjunction, which is probably why we're seeing the escalation of things so quickly. Because it's not a singular factor, which in itself might have taken decades, right? We're seeing tons of things together hit you. And that's why, you might be seeing the changes you're talking about that might have taken 50 years of long-term atrazine exposure happening over 10 years, because there's this social engineering aspect.
We also know that, I read this study, I think we talked about it on the show, there's a birth control that women had taken and they could still get pregnant while on it. And if they did, they had a masculinized female baby that I think they said every one of them turned out to be lesbians. So I think this stuff is deeply altering our physiology, but it's not just the plastics or whatever. I mean, the chemicals in our food in general, words you can't even pronounce. So we do a lot here to get away from that stuff. We have those epic meat bars, those protein bars.
Yeah, they're good.
The ingredient is like pork, salt, pepper, amazing. Beef, salt, pepper, venison. And, we have this here. We have these glass bottles that we put filtered water in, remineralized. But I think it's also Big Pharma. These drugs.
So I have experience with Big Pharma. I have Crohn's disease. I also have a genetic defect which causes my cholesterol to be like ridiculously high. And oddly enough, I just did a heart scan and I don't have evidence of arteriosclerosis, which contradicts all the knowledge we know about high cholesterol. And so there's a big shift happening in medicine. A lot of my doctors are like, hey, let's maybe pull you off, not give you tons of biologics. Luckily I have good doctors, and they're like, let's try the AIP diet, the anti-inflammatory diet, and get you on clean meats that are not processed in any way, shape, or form. Keep you away from certain vegetables that are, you're not able to tolerate right now. Don't eat anything processed. Don't eat refined sugar. Keeping me on a strict diet. And I'm seeing way better results than that. But I got on a medication called Repatha. And I'm not going to bash this medication. It lowered my cholesterol tremendously. But I ended up, and like, this is incredibly rare, and it shouldn't happen on this medication at all, in the hospital with rhabdo. Rhabdo is what you see like CrossFit athletes get when they're dehydrated and overworked. Your muscle is dying. And it leaks into your body and it can kill you. It can clog your kidneys. And so they denied that there's any correlation between their medication and developing rhabdo. I've been a competitive athlete my whole life for fighting. I have never developed this. I didn't even do a hard workout this time, and I developed it 2 days after the injection. Can I say it's from that? No, I would never say it's absolutely from that. But again, we don't know what we're putting into our body half the time. And the pharmaceutical companies are not out for our best interest all the time.
And they benefit it. We're talking about a potential increase in autoimmune disease, and autoimmune disease is chronic. Who benefits from when you're chronically sick? Big Pharma. They need you as customers forever. It's hard to say because I don't want to assume the worst in everyone. But if you're in the pharmaceutical industry, curing patients is actually not in your best interest.
Chronic illness is a godsend for Big Pharma. Chronic illness is the best. It beats everything else because you have it for your whole life, and a lot of them don't necessarily lower your lifespan that much. They just make it very, very difficult to live with it.
Do you think that maybe some of the things you're experiencing are caused by the pharmaceuticals or by
1,000,000%
diet?
1,000,000% diet.
Yeah.
1,000,000% diet in my life has affected me. I think there's environmental factors that have affected me. I think people don't realize the effects of, I've traveled a lot of my life and I've lived in like different places. I've lived in places with mold for sure, black mold, other things like that. And I'm sure that's had an effect. Certain stressors in life can cause an effect. Again, I think, like I said earlier, I've suffered from depression and just states of nihilism. I didn't believe in something bigger than myself. I'm sure that living in a negative state had an impact on my health as well. A lot of people don't acknowledge the effects that stress, depression, all these things have on your health. And the mind-body connection was largely ignored by doctors until very recently, where they said, no, the mind really does have an impact on your body. We do have to take these things more seriously. Long-term anxiety does increase your risk of certain complications in life, like heart disease and things like that. So I think that luckily there's a shift happening for good doctors, but I also saw during the whole vaccine thing, how many crazy doctors marching with all the protesters, during the BLM rally.
Well, I think we bring this up yesterday that it was Colorado Sun and there are other outlets that said the BLM protest actually reduced the spread of COVID.
Yes, of course.
You had a video out of New York where the doctors are standing outside waving and cheering for all of the people marching in the street.
There were doctors saying like, this is a worthy cause, so it's worth doing. You're saying, I can't go to work, but this can happen?
But then when people were like, it may be a worthy cause, but you're causing us harm, they went, actually, it looks like these are reducing the spread of COVID.
This is the scariest thing in the world to me, that people can accept such ludicrous positions. I remember when this happened. I spoke to my dad when the doctors were out protesting with the BLM riders. And my dad said, look, the truth is people will see the numbers will go up and they'll acknowledge that these people are wrong.
It won't matter because they won't report the numbers going up.
And it won't matter
when they
even
do,
if they
they'll make a
did.
reason.
Yeah.
They'll
They
give it
won't
another
report-
reason.
yeah.
It was a Trump rally that super spread it. You know what you said earlier that actually made me, that makes me a little bit upset. You said these people are just omitted certain information, and I agree they are. But on another level, when I talk to people that I've known for years, and I tell them, "Hey, this is what's going on at some of these drag shows that you think kids should go to. Here's pictures and video." They go, "It doesn't matter. That's not most of them. That's just that one." They will rationalize anything at this point. It's not a matter of lacking information. It's a matter of your entire identity being wrapped around this singular ideology. And that if anyone challenges it, you will always find a way to rationalize why they are wrong and it's okay.
Another one. Remember when Trump left office and the death counters magically went away on all the news sites? It's just evil. They're
It's
just evil.
The death counters that were never accurate. I mean, there were all sorts of like very subtly slipped out corrections after the fact. I remember some city in Massachusetts was like, "Oh, we have to reduce our number by like several thousand." And one of the examples was someone died while they had COVID, but in a car accident.
Driving
And
a
so
car.
it was sort of like, I see. So you're padding your numbers here, team. Like it didn't make any sense.
There was financial benefits to that too, right?
Sure.
They
But
had
what
to
I'm
do with
saying
subsidies.
is they would present this information. There's always an appeal to authority. Look at our data and look at these statistics. But all of it is misrepresented and wrong. And so you can never create a culture that fully, at least for a lot of people, you grow an intense amount of skepticism. They can never trust any of these institutions, which personally I feel like is good. You should question these things. On the other hand, when we need reliable information to make informed decisions, it's not out there.
Yeah, you have two options now. You're either misinformed or uninformed.
Yeah.
And that's a scary place to be, especially with things that involve your safety and health. And we've done something that's so dangerous just on another deep kind of social level, which is we've taken the historical virtues that have made societies great, like courage, strength, being able to stand up in the face of adversity. And we've altered them completely and put things like security, don't be scared, agreeableness. Those are now our highest virtues. Those are the antithesis of virtues. They're not just the denial of the other virtues. They are the opposite of them. And so, I mean, that's just a whole other problem in itself.
Is that part of a society becoming more feminized? Agreeableness women being considered higher on the agreeable scale, and all of those other things that you're talking about, whether we're talking about courage, have some aspect of conflict behind it a lot of the time, right? Being willing to stand up for yourself, being willing to say, no, I'm not going to accept this garbage story you're telling me. I just wonder if that plays at least some role in it, in the fact that a lot of it now is appeal to authority, right? Like, you don't want to be the conspiracy theorist, right? I was told that it's bad to do your own research. I was told that by a very reliable source at this mainstream network that doing your own research is a sign of white supremacy or something. I don't know. You know what? But they were saying that, right? They were saying you shouldn't, like, now is the time. There was articles in Salon that were saying now is the time to not do your own research.
Yeah, don't critically think, the New York Times said.
Bad.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.